Now, on All Indiana Politics, the third-party push for Indiana governor, our exclusive interview with the libertarian hoping to turn anger over masks into a political upset.
And the vice presidential debate.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I'm speaking.
Breaking down Mike Pence's performance on stage with Senator Kamala Harris.
Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
And thank you for joining us this Sunday morning. I'm Phil Sanchez. We want to jump right into it this morning with the Libertarian candidate for Indiana governor. Donald Rainwater calls himself a lifelong Hoosier. A graduate of Warren Central High School, he served 8 years in the United States Navy and has spent the past 20 years in software engineering. He's with our Brooke Martin.
And let's welcome in now Donald Rainwater. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So let's start with why you for governor? Why now?
Well, I think the short version of that answer would be because I believe that the citizens of the state of Indiana deserve an option. And I believe that currently the two old party candidates are 1A and 1B, big government, big taxes, big spending, big bureaucracy. And I believe that Hoosiers are ready for and want a small government, limited government, protect my individual rights, let me choose how I live out my life type of government. And so we are here to provide that option.
Well, speaking of big government, speaking of mandates, Governor Holcomb, many other city, county leaders have been issuing mask mandates, as we all know. You've been vocally opposed to that idea. Why?
Well, because I believe, first of all, that we in the United States of America and in Indiana have a constitutional republic form of government. And the idea is that our government is supposed to represent us and protect our individual rights. And what that means to me is in a particular situation such as the health issue that we have right now, government should be providing all of the data, all of the information as transparently as possible to the citizens so that the citizens can decide for themselves, what do I need to do to protect myself, my family, my business, my household during this particular crisis? Because I don't believe that the 6.8 million Hoosiers in the state of Indiana all fit a one-size-fits-all solution to anything. Everyone's unique, and everybody deserves the right to choose for themselves how to best protect themselves in an emergency. So the idea of a one-size-fits-all government mandate, to me, completely defies that.
Governor Holcomb and Democratic candidate Dr. Woody Myers have been on All Indiana Politics the past 2 weeks. We asked them if they would consider reimposing the stay-at-home mandate. Let's listen to what they had to say.
Yes, it would be. We need to look at the numbers. We need to listen to the data as it's discussed by the folks at the NIH. But I'm very worried. I'm very worried that we're too lax with respect to masks in Indiana, that we truly need a mask mandate.
The data has dictated that. The doctors and the epidemiologists and the scientists and the modelers, these are the folks that I'm listening to, the folks that are in the field right now practicing their trade and surrounded by that every minute of the day. And they're the folks who are making sure that we're equipped to make informed decisions that allow us to scale up or scale down and to make sure that we're doing everything that we can responsibly to get through this.
So you would consider another stay-at-home
order? If the numbers dictate it, then we would have to. You wouldn't take anything off the table if the numbers dictate it.
So there you heard Dr. Myers, Governor Holcomb, both saying they would consider another stay-at-home mandate for the state. Donald Rainwater, is there any circumstance, overcrowded hospitals, any hypotheticals where you would also agree and consider a stay-at-home mandate?
I would not, and I'll tell you why. First of all, in all of that discussion, there was never any mention of the damage that the stay-at-home mandates did to anybody that has medical, emotional, psychological addiction, all of the issues that can be exacerbated by telling someone you have to sequester in your home until we tell you can leave. And oh, by the way, if you venture out, we might arrest you, we might fine you money that you don't have because we've told you you can't work. There's no discussion about the long-term effects of these stay-at-home orders. And it also, both gentlemen talk about, we look at the data and we make decisions and then we tell you what to do. Again, in the United States of America, in the state of Indiana, we are not subjects, we are citizens. And therefore, if you give us the right data and the right information and you're transparent and forthcoming, then we should be able on our own to make the appropriate decision. Unfortunately, because human nature is such that if you ask me to do something, I might do it. If you tell me, I'm probably going to rebel against that. We see that's what we end up with, is a lot of people who are mad, not because there's an issue, but because they're being told what to do instead of shown all of the facts.
Well, obviously there has been an economic fallout from the pandemic, no doubt.
Tremendous.
Libertarians in general tax less, and you've talked about how you would fix the state of Indiana that we're in the economic situation. How do you do that?
Well, I don't know if fix is the right word. I believe that, first of all, we've been thrown into an economic crisis that, and the analogy that I use is that it's like throwing a pebble into a pond. And when you first throw that pebble into the pond, when you do these stay-at-home mandates, when you shut down businesses, when you tell people they can't work, and almost 1 million Hoosiers have to file unemployment claims, then it's a ripple effect. And as those ripples continue outward, they get bigger. The 2008 economic crisis, we were still recovering from that in 2012. And so my concern is that we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the long-term effects. What we're doing is acting as if now everything's okay. So for me, one of the first things we need to do is focus on the small business owners in Indiana who were the ones most impacted by those executive orders. And one of the ways that we can do that is to eliminate the individual income tax in Indiana. Everybody gets a raise the minute you do that, whether you're a teacher, a fireman, a policeman, you work in manufacturing, if you're a family farmer, everybody gets a raise because that's money that goes back in your pocket instead of going into the state's coffers. It gives all of the business owners who pay their business taxes through their individual income taxes, your sole proprietors, your LLCs, your partnerships, gives them money to then reinvest into their business. And, there's no other stable financial economic platform than the small business owner. Those are the people who create the jobs in Indiana. And it concerns me because one of the things I heard last week when the governor was here was that we were going to grow our way out and that we were going to bring in all these new jobs from out of state. And he says that, but he also says there are 118,000 high-paying jobs in Indiana that go unfilled because we don't have the people trained to fill them. So you have these jobs, people aren't trained to fill. You're going to bring in more of these jobs that people aren't trained to fill. How does that help the Hoosier economically, who has had to file for unemployment since March, who doesn't know how they're going to pay all their bills, put clothes on their kids or food in their children's mouths? That's not an explanation. The reality is we've got to get these business owners that we negatively impacted back on their feet and back propping up our economy.
Well, we have just touched the tip of the iceberg here with your ideas and your policies. Where can people go to learn more about you?
It's rainwaterforindiana.com.
Okay, Donald Rainwater, Libertarian candidate for governor of Indiana. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Brooke, Mr. Rainwater, thank you very much. And you can also find our full interviews with Governor Eric Holcomb and Democratic challenger Dr. Woody Myers online right now at wishtv.com and our All Indiana Politics podcast. All right, coming up, Mike Pence defending the Trump administration's record in the vice presidential debate and maybe setting the stage for his own run for the White House. What Wednesday night's performance could mean for his presidential hopes. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics. We turn now to the vice presidential debate. Was it also a preview of the 2024 presidential campaign? And what does it mean for Mike Pence's political future? We put those questions to Tom LOBIANCO, D.C. correspondent for Business Insider and author of Piety and Power, Mike Pence and the Taking of the White House. Tom, always good to see you. Thank you for taking a few minutes for us.
Thank you, Phil.
How did Mike Pence do Wednesday compared to previous debates?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier today. It's inside Business Insider. One of the things that we noticed just from our highly informal survey of sources, friends, family who were texting during Wednesday night's debate, the guys, men, tended to see, generally speaking, Pence doing pretty good on stage. The women tended to see Mike Pence mansplaining his way through the debate. There did seem to be a real gender gap in the perception of his performance. Compared to his 2016 debate with Tim Kaine, it was not as strong or, and I use this word loosely with regards to the vice president, energetic as he was in 2016. However, he did well considering the circumstances.
Okay, so would you consider this a win, a loss, or a draw, especially when you're thinking about maybe in the future for a potential Mike Pence presidential run?
I always try to think about this in terms of what are his ambitions and, where is he going with this? In terms of the general public, this would probably be scored as a loss for Mike Pence, just because he was defending the Trump administration largely on the coronavirus response, generally considered to have been mishandled by the White House. His audience is not the general public. His audience is the Republican primary base, specifically the Republican primaries in 2024. By almost every expectation, he is setting up a run for the White House in 2024.
That being said, do you think last night was about 2020 or more about 2024?
That is the question for Mike Pence right now. The funny thing is that 2020 is about 2024. For Mike Pence. Really, his interest and Donald Trump's interests here they're distinctly aligned, really in a way that they were not in 2016. You can see Pence was tired on Wednesday night. I've gotten a lot of questions about that. Was he kind of up to speed with things? Was he concerned about anything? He did look a little bit worn out on Wednesday night, but he's a very methodical, very disciplined campaigner. So again, back to the question, 24 is all about 20 in this case.
Tired and worn out, but not tired enough to talk over the moderator, which was pretty obvious last night, and it's gotten a lot of attention since the debate. Mm-hmm. What was up with that? Was that typical Mike Pence?
Yeah, Mike Pence steamrolling. It's he used to, when we would sit there in the governor's office. I remember a reporter for the CNHI newspaper chain a few years ago got very frustrated by this. And I'll tell you that we were all frustrated by this. It's not just on the debate stage that he does this. When he doesn't like a question, he filibusters.
Real quick, one more question for you, because you tweeted something out last night Wednesday night during the debate, and you said, trying to get details on what Pence would do as governor, president, whatever, is like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. What do you mean by that?
And the example here is when he had what should have been a softball question on where he stands on abortion. Where do you stand on Roe v. Wade? In the past, in campaign speeches, it's been a talking point for him. He talks about relegating it to the dustbin of history. Same thing for Obamacare. I'm actually a little surprised. I was surprised to see him whiff on that question on Wednesday night. To be honest with you, I don't know why he struggles with giving specifics on that answer, because frankly, this is one of the few areas where he has been incredibly consistent throughout his career. Look, he's flip-flopped on his position on trade, on NAFTA, but when it comes to pro-life, that is a defining characteristic of Mike Pence. I still don't know why he whiffed on that question.
Yeah. Good stuff. The countdown is on. Tom, thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. Tom LoBianco, thank you. All right, coming up, the hearing for Supreme Court nominee and the question about changing the number of justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. That's next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics. As we get ready to talk U.S. Supreme Court, we want to welcome back April Gregory, a Republican campaign consultant who worked with Merritt for the mayor campaign, and Brian Gaddy, former political director for the Indiana Democratic Party. So hearings are set to begin Monday for Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett. And Brian, we want to start with you. Is this a foregone conclusion that she's going to be on the court?
At this point, they probably have the votes to get her confirmed. I think at this point that is going to be a Pyrrhic victory for the Republicans, because even if she does, in fact, get on the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, the fear is that she is going to not only roll back Roe v. Wade, but she's a direct threat to the Affordable Care Act. And right now, in the midst of a pandemic, for millions of Americans to lose health care coverage would be a political disaster for the Republicans. So I say it's a Pyrrhic victory. It's a victory apparently on its face right now, but over the long term, it's going to be politically disastrous for the Republicans.
April, do Republicans face any potential backlash trying to get this done before Election Day?
No, with our own party, absolutely not. This is actually going to be the boost we need right now, coming off of Trump's COVID diagnosis. There maybe was just a little bit of weakening of the campaign there, the Trump campaign, and this is actually going to be the boost that they need to push them over the finish line on November 3rd. So
what are the questions in the presidential campaign? Will Joe Biden look to expand the court if he wins, and Democrats win the House and Senate as well? April, your thoughts on that?
Absolutely he will, and he has told us repeatedly this week that he is not going to answer that question. Kamala refused to answer the question herself in the debate the other night, and of course the moderator didn't press her to answer that. And unfortunately, the national media is not pressing Joe Biden. He said he got off by saying that if he answers that question, it's going to change the conversation right now surrounding the candidates. However, Joe Biden is running for, this is a job interview, and we need to know what they think about this. And it's not okay that he thinks he can skirt this issue.
Brian, your thoughts on this, and is this really a big deal for anybody outside of political circles?
I think it's inside baseball, to be blunt about it. First of all, you got to win the election, and Vice President Biden and Senator Harris are focused on the issues that are facing the American people. That's primarily the disastrous response of the Trump-Pence administration on COVID-19. We have over 200,000 Americans dead from this deadly pandemic. That's been the direct incompetence of the Trump-Pence administration, and not to mention our economy in tatters. That's what they're focused on right now. I think the Republicans want to steer toward this discussion about packing the court because they think it helps their base. But quite frankly,
all right,
they're they're behind in the polls and they need all the help they can get.
All right, I'm tight on time. Brian, April, thank you very much, and we will be right back on this Sunday. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also listen to us anytime by downloading the All Indiana Politics podcast.